I will, before we get started and we get actually to hear your beautiful voice and get to have a conversation together, I will give a little short description so that our guests know a little bit more about you. So you have more than 20 years of international experience in sports, real estate, statistics, banking, and law. You help business owners protect and grow their businesses by providing them with tailored contracts, risk mitigation strategies, and out-of-court dispute resolution tools. Your mission is to make law accessible and understandable for others. As a messenger for change and innovation, you are disrupting the traditional legal industry by serving your clients with a unique, proven system which you created out of your knowledge in math, statistics, right, and logic, and your skills in risk assessment and contract negotiations. You also offer business facilitation and deal-making services to those looking for viable business opportunities and reliable partnerships in Switzerland. But you work all over the world, correct? Did I describe you well so far?
Hi, Ariana. Well, I could use to this kind of introduction. Thank you so much. So I had to smile as well. Yes, you almost mentioned most of my skills.
Most of your skills. I know there's so many. I think we have to spend hours and hours. But what is, so aside from your wonderful, pedigree and education and expertise and experiences, as probably everybody has seen right now, our names are very similar. They're not quite the same, but almost the same. There's just one letter at the end, which is different. So we both come from the same region, Iran. We both have sort of the same background and same struggles and also experiences that we had to, live through all of our lives. So I think that's what brought us together closer. And I think the topic of tonight, which is leveraging diversity to inclusion, is really, really timely. Especially, first of all, coming from both of our backgrounds, which we'll get more into, I think, once we get started. And also because of what's going on right now in the world. So I think we had picked this topic way before, months ago, way before all these, topics where, getting fueled up in the world. But so I think a very, very timely topic, and I cannot wait to delve more into them together with you. So without any further ado, let's get started. So tell me a little bit about you so we know more about your background, more than what I just described. And yeah.
Thank you, Ariana. And I thank you also, A Small World, for providing us this opportunity and this professional platform just to have access, just out of the blue, sitting here from sunny Zurich, Switzerland, and talking to people from all around the world. It's my utmost pleasure and honor. Thank you also, everybody, for joining and arranging and investing your time now here with us. And we hope actually to make your 1 hour at least the best hour of your day. Let's not promise too much. I welcome everybody also from my side. Thank you very much. Also, Ariana, for the amazing introduction. And thank you, everybody, for being here. So as Ariana kindly mentioned, my name is Awin, one win, not two. So I always also tell my clients, sometimes if you want to win, then work with Awin. There's no other solution for you. If you want to do win-win business, work with Awin. If you want to win the process, work with Awin. So at the end of the day, something should be won. But we also talk about this strategy of winning, because one part of my mission doing a legal practice, total different than the way it has been practiced all around the world, has been now to challenge or to change this false perception of winning, which has been now settled throughout the legal industry and also in the business industry. So I just took a total different approach. I changed the game, let's say, because sometimes when we want to do something new, the best thing is instead of fighting the old systems, creating the new one. So for this, I always follow this valuable quote of my favorite philosopher, architect, and thinker, Buckminster Fuller, who said, to create a new reality, you do not need to fight the old system. In order to change something, you need to create something new that, as time passes by, that makes the old one obsolete. So that has been now the pathway of my life. And as you just mentioned so nicely, as a messenger of change and innovation all my life, people who want to change, people who rebel against the status quo, they are also troublemakers and in troubles all the time. So there is always this constant challenge of battle, settle, or rebel. So the changes are always like bringing us to new perceptions. And from my background, I mean, born and raised in a large Kurdish family in the heart of the Tehran city, the capital city of Iran. But as a Kurd, I was already labeled as minority in my own hometown. So I was already born into diversity, a diversity that was somehow followed by adversity. Because not only for me, but all the ethnic minorities in our country. And of course, it is not only about where we come from. I think it's a global issue. So minorities and ethnic issues are not only specifically for one certain region in the world, but of course, where we come from, the beautiful Iran, which is now ruled by a false system, but the country as such has so much to offer, and also the people. I mean, they have people like me and Ariane. I mean, come on. So there must be something nice with that place. But unfortunately, bringing up the topic, the sad part is sometimes a part of diversity is already what you're born into, something that you can't change, something that you're born with. These are also the things that you can't change. So having carried all of those components with myself through all my life, and then as a girl born as a second youngest child amongst 9 other kids, my father always makes this joke and said, when people say how many kids do you have or how many is your family, he said, we are a Kennedy family, the whole football team, including the parents. So being born also in such a family amongst mostly males. So I also learned the parts with the kind of like gender challenges, age challenges, gaps between generations. So the diversity started very early. The language that we spoke at home was not the same that we were speaking out behind the doors of the home. So I had to learn also into that new language in a very early age, because otherwise we could not even play outside. And all of that happening in where actually you call it home, where you call it, where you feel you belong to. But after quite a short amount of time, you realize you're being already labeled and put into certain clusters and so on and so forth. So just having all of those as their background, it brought me also to start rebelling from a very early age. And then I went through the fields that was rather taught for men, and I went into like mathematics, statistics, banking, and then like sports world, and then real estate was also a very male dominated area in our country. But then I just cut this story short so that we can go into the main topics, just bringing all of those together and then changing countries, changing platforms, changing lifestyles. I mean, I'm the diversity itself.
Exactly. As I call it, usually we are the United Nations just in one person. So, so I was so excited to be on this platform and to be talking to you that I forgot to mention a little bit of the house rules. So the beauty of life and the beauty of just doing it, right? So just as for everyone to know, we will be talking for about 45 minutes. And then in the meantime, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to write them down in the Q&A section. And we will address them either as we go, if they're, if they fit the topic that we're talking about right now, or we'll address them at the end for about 15 minutes. So the goal is to be done at 9, so everyone can go afterwards and do what they need to do. So sorry about this little parentheses, but thank you again, everybody, for your patience. But Awin, so that's really amazing. You're like the diversity queen in one person. But so we a little bit jumped to everything that you have achieved. But I would love to go back a little bit, because you said that you were born as a minority already in a country which is a minority here while you're away from it, right? So minority in a minority. So how old were you? How young were you when you started to notice that you were different and that maybe you weren't fitting within the norm or the general population? And what exactly can you remember having heard or experienced?
Amazing question. The first experience was actually, I think I was age of 3, the time that you start 3 or 3.5. So the moment that you really, the first memories actually, because there is a lot also before that, but those times that you still can have the flashback and throwback and you know, what have you faced as first challenges? So the first challenge for me was just the language, just to go outside and play with other kids. So there I understood why everybody is speaking a language so fluently, which is actually looks like my my home language. Why can I not speak that language now? Or how can I learn it? And how can I play with those kids? And why they are trying to approach me, talking to me in a different language, and I'm responding them. I'm trying to respond them, but then I felt that feeling of trying to elevate myself or to fit in, just to be able to belong. You know, that is actually one big thing that creates already that prejudice or that labeling against diversity, the feeling of you want to belong to the same, to the similar, to those who are similar like yourself, who understand you, who look like you, who speak like you, who maybe smell like you, or who walk and talk and eat like you. So that was my very first. And the other one that I remember more clearly, which was the second or maybe the more important one, was my first day of school. Because we were standing in all of those queues. I mean, the first day of school, all kids were crying. And, you know, I don't know, everybody remembers that very first day as a very tragic day. For me, it was like, I was looking at all of those kids and said, this garden is so beautiful. Why everybody's crying? So actually, I loved this school. And then, so I was the first or the only kid who was not crying. And we were the first group of girls going to school, to primary school in Iran after the rise of the Islamic Revolution. So we were the first group who were obliged to wear a headscarf. And then the first thing that I realized what was different about me, or why I was considered being different or not belonging to the same, was that my name was written falsely on the class door. So that I was the last one who found my first grade class. My sister was running around with me everywhere, just reading where are all these names, and I don't belong to none of these names. So that was, again, another feeling of like not fitting in or not being welcomed or not belonging to a certain system, which was just a normal school, a primary school, all kids. And then at the end of the day, after like half an hour double checking with the school office and the school directorship, they found out that they misspelled my name because it was written in my birth document in Kurdish as Awin with like a different letter, an additional letter to the A. And then it was written like Shervin or something like that, which is also an Iranian name, on the door of the class. And everybody was looking for a Shervin. No, this is Tavakoli, Shervin. No, that's not her name. So then they were asking already, oh, this is such an exotic name. What does it mean? Where is that coming from? And then I had the feeling of like, I always had to explain myself, even when I just want to introduce myself. So that these two were the main one. There are millions of, I mean, more of them. I mean, you were just asking me before we speak here, how do you pronounce my name properly? So this is something that I deal with every day. And these days I can laugh about it. But as a kid, it was not always very funny.
It's not fun, right? Because your name is your identity. So that's by which you are being recognized, by which you also recognize others when they call you, right? So,
correct.
So it is actually one thing that we don't maybe pay enough attention to, but it is very important. And people love hearing their name being told. So to our guest here, if you want to make anyone feel special, always cite their name when you call them, because that's something that will make them always feel special. And I could not, I mean, I could relate to you, of course, not to that extent, because when, you know, in Iran, I was not part of a minority, but then very soon when I was 7 years old, I moved to Paris. And same thing with me, you know, I spoke.
Started.
Yeah, and, you know, and I had to find my way, and no one would talk to me. I was invisible, but very visible at the same time because I was sticking out like a,
Different.
yeah. And it was really hard because you want to belong. That is not one time when you want to rebel, when you're like so young.
Correct.
You want to be part of the bigger picture.
Correct.
And then it does scar you to, for a while. But then, as you and I are, we're very strong, and we use it as a tool to actually make us
Yeah.
stronger. And
I mean, the thing is, the secret is whatever doesn't break you, it makes you.
exactly.
So,
But you don't know that as a kid, right? So, but
no, no, no.
what do you think that we have so many biases, and where did you think they come from, even so early on?
Well, that is a actually very sensitive area just to even deep dive into, because it's so vast. It is so vast, and I was lucky actually last year to be invited at a Forbes summit here also in Zurich, where I had the honor also to present and also to be a part of the closing chapter. And the focus of that summit was exactly how to bring diversity and inclusion together, so that the feeling of like being labeled or the feeling of like being excluded, how to leverage those actually for a more powerful, let's say, relaunch in the future. And luckily, just 2-3 months after that event, then I was invited in another summit in LA, and I met Moira Forbes in person. So we had the possibility also to go through that topic a little bit, especially from her own background as well, or from her own grandfather launching the whole Forbes concept as also a non-US immigrant into the US. So the diversity was also there already. And we could have that very good conversation around the topic of how those kind of setbacks, they can afterwards turn to different achievements, or to different, really the fuel of the relaunch or a more powerful launch. There are a few aspects that I would probably like to just mention. We do not have really time to go deep in them. There are 3 levels of diversity. The first level is the age, the race, the ethnic, the heritage, for example, culture. These are the things that you can't change. You are born as that. That's it. You are born as an African, as a Kurd, as an Arab. This is something that you're born with. This is your race. This is something that you can't change anymore. And there is a second level, which is the level of education, the attitude, the social status, the family status. These are the things that you can't still change, but you have them also. You have a certain education, so to change those things, it's a bit of different, harder work. Gender as well. I mean, gender is something that until a few years ago you could say it is on the level 1, but nowadays it's on the level 2, because you still have also the possibility to switch to something else. And the third level is the level of your energy, your influence, your charisma, love, passion, introvert, extrovert, so beliefs, etc. So having the journey from those first to the second and to the third, and then having the combination of all of those, I think that is what inspires us towards inclusion, towards bringing all of those components together, instead of shying away from your race, from your ethnic, from your culture, or from your beliefs. The second tier is rather of those which are planted. The second and the third ones are planted in us, not by ourselves. They're not born. So we just absorb them, where they're just planting into us by parents, by raising methods, by the society, teachers, education, so on and so forth. So they are actually the tough ones to fight.
So I have a question for you, because yeah, of course, the gender, unless you choose to change it, it is what it is. Your race, it is what it is. But don't you think that education, culture, belief systems can be changed? Actually, I mean, these are just thoughts, right? They're not tangible things. These are just things that don't exist in the physical world, right? So one belief that has been learned can be unlearned as well, right? Education, if you're not born into it, but you can, if you aspire to it, you can definitely push and get educated, correct? So these are
Correct.
the things that can be changed.
Yeah, even language or something. I mean, you're born with a language, but then you can acquire new ones. It's like acquiring new knowledge and new skills. So these are the things that once we start, as you said, changing them, they can influence also the first tier. Not that you change them, but that you don't feel the urge of fitting in and settling. Because the majority, unfortunately, that is also the reason that causes a lot of issues around the world, in corporate world, in politic, in, I mean, all the wars in the world. Look at the roots are all religion, genders, race, culture, heritage. This is, if you look at it, it's ridiculous actually, but they're happening, and there are like millions or hundreds of thousands of people in different countries or different territories of the world. They are just giving their lives. I mean, the war that we were born into, the 8-year brutal war of Iran and Iraq, after the Black Islamic Revolution, then we were actually spending the best part of our childhood within a wartime, a devastating war with displacements, with a lot of, I mean, millions of young people in the front losing their lives. And at the end of the day, two people go and shake hands and sign something that we never found out what the reason was to bring it up for 8 years. And that is actually, these are all these beliefs and all of these biases that are already planted into us, into human. And they create those kind of labeling attitudes, or those kind of like people who allow themselves, permit themselves to judge someone by gender, by language, by heritage, by name even. I mean, I will give you a few examples. They are a bit of funny, but also very bitter. So we come to a certain level of competency, confidence, that today we can laugh about them. But there are millions of others that they are not on that level, and they cannot laugh about it at all. They get either depressed, they get trapped into aggression, they trapped into conflicts, they get trapped into setbacks in their career, in their private life, and all because that these things were not put on the table clearly and transparently. One thing that helped me a lot, I don't know if that's really also going direction to the question, but it's a very cool example that I just suddenly recalled. The first day of my school, after they found my name and everything was settled, so I belonged to the class 1-4. So I still remember that. It was just on the corner of the whole huge, and after like 20 years, I went back to the school and I thought, this is not so big at all. Actually, it's a small yard. But I was sitting on the first row because my father said, go always in the first row, so you will observe everything and you're always the first for opportunities. I still have that attitude actually in conferences or everywhere you see me, I'm always in the first row. But the funny thing is, what does it have to do with diversity and inclusion? I went to that first row, although I was late, but that very first row, there was one very nice spot right in the middle of the first middle row was empty. And of course I ran for it, and the class was like full with 30 people. And I sat in between two cute other girls, little girls. And then the first thing that my sister actually taught me, she said, when you go to school, the first day of your school, you introduce yourself to your right and to your left side. So I already was like pre-programmed that I'm going to sit in the middle. That was funny. To your right and your left side, introduce your name the way you want it to be pronounced. That was nice. So I told my name and I said, this is my name. What is your name? And the teacher was already talking, but I made that introduction. And my right side, the girl told me, my name is Rachel. My left side, the girl told me, my name is Ramona. A few months later, I realized that on my right side, the Rachel was a Jewish girl and the Ramona was an Armenian Christian girl. And I was a Kurd, like in between them. So diversity in one row in the first class, the first day of school, being late and sitting in between. That was the reason that that row remained empty, which is very sad. Very sad. So it means that is actually those kind of programming or those kind of beliefs that are already given to the children, that you just hang around with those that you can feel similar, or that you understand their names or where they're coming from. So I assumed that many other kids, they just said their names and then those names was read or just were announced and nobody could associate with them and they just sat alone. and in between was empty. And they are still friends with me.
That's great. Well, could it also be that the kids didn't just want to, they weren't brave enough to be in the first, you know, being sitting next to three cute girls on the first row? Maybe.
That is the nicer explanation. That's a very cute explanation.
You know, the benefit of the doubt, right? But it's amazing that you would remember, because it really impacted you so much.
Absolutely. So actually that was the time that I already understood, or probably that was also one of the reasons that brought me up as a very tolerant, very open, and a very rebellious person, because I was already like in between two others who were also minorities in our country. I mean, in every other place that would be okay, but so we were like three sitting together and already, how to say, removed those false perception of whatever it is different, it is not safe. And that is actually building all of those biases and prejudices coming from. So that people, even as kids, they associate with something that is similar like them. Someone who speaks the same language or even the same accent like them. Or maybe the name is very similar or familiar to them. They've heard it once. But people who are different, others try to take distance, which shows itself already in a higher age, but already as in the world of the kids, it was starting after like the second or the third or the fourth grades already, unfortunately. And after 4 years, those two girls, they switched school, so which was sad.
But that's quite young to be able to decipher between cultures and religions and ethnic backgrounds, right? Do you think that's...
And that is the role of the parents and teachers. Because if teachers or parents, they start showing the kids that it's fine, we're all one, and you will be better when you start having the exchange and the relationships or friendships with the others as well, that will help you grow more confident or more competent. There won't be something like that. But unfortunately, those parents are also planted by their own biases or religious beliefs or cultural beliefs, and then encouraging their kids, instead of to mingling or to mixing up, to distance from whatever is not the same or similar like them.
So just, you know, like for me, whenever I meet someone, every time they ask me where I'm from, even though I had, like I said, I'm a United Nations in one person because I lived in so many countries and continents, but I always say I'm from Iran because I want to break that, that stereotype that they may have about what an Iranian woman should look and act like, right? So, and that's something that that's kind of maybe my rebellious side or whatever, but I like to teach by example, or by showing them that, you know what, whatever your beliefs may be, I want to hopefully maybe change them by the time that we have, we finish our conversation. One time this lady, first minute I met her, she said, where are you from? I said, Iran. Right away she said, I'm scared of Iranians and I will never go to Iran.
Okay.
Like, nice to meet you as well.
But
here's
the shield.
Actually, I took it as a challenge because
the golden shield.
No, I really think that people by nature are not bad. They're not, it's just that maybe they're ignorant, and then they listen to so much, to the media, and they have so many impressions coming from the wrong places that they build, their knowledge base from those things because they have never met an actual Iranian or whatever that might be. So for me, I wasn't mad because I'm very confident in who I am and where I come from, and I'm very proud of where I come from. So my goal was, and I told her that by the end of the night, I would hope for her to change her mind, which she did, but she still didn't want to run. She said, fair enough. But, throughout my whole life, I guess being outgoing and just, taking things lightly, I was able to enroll people into who I am. And also living in LA, which is also called Tehrangeles, was very easy, But what was how did you teach by example? Or did you, did you find instances where you were able to enroll people who you were and change their minds? And what happened?
Well, the best solution is that what you also pointed at, to lead by example, to live by the example, and to live what you believe in. Because as Max Dupree very nicely said, he said, you can't become who you want by remaining who you are. So the evolution and the changes start in ourselves. And the moment we get familiar and acquainted with and friends with change and evolution and being in a diverse world, by including all of those criteria and components, that is the time that you start really living it. And I'm saying it now, it sounds very easy, but for myself, it's been also the never-ending constant challenge, because, you know, as not only as minority or Kurd or just cultural or religious heritage, etc., but also gender-wise, that's also another issue, not only in those countries that we're coming from, also in this part of the world, actually. So it is something global. But the moment that I realized it is okay to live all of my sides, the professional, the passionate, the party girl, the crazy one, the funny one. So just to keep the smile whenever I want to keep it, to wear my nerd glasses wherever I want to wear it, if it's appropriate, to dress up wherever I feel like, or to do the professional one wherever it applies to, and it's fine. Because, you know, the industry that I come from, I mean, the legal industry, financial industry, you can't find something more conservative than that, probably only the church, because, you know, that is actually the worldwide. It is not only in different countries, but in everywhere in the world, actually. The legal industry, financial industry, they're very biased, unfortunately. So that is one topic that we just quickly look at, how the corporate world can also integrate biases into solutions for integration and inclusion, which is something that are now being spent hundreds of $billions around the world, but unfortunately, they don't know where to target. They're just trying to cure the symptoms, but not going into the cause, into that very point that you also mentioned, those beliefs or the knowledges that have been acquired throughout years or even generations in different countries or in different parts of the world. And especially now that the world is getting smaller and smaller, it is getting even more and more challenging. The time that I myself thought, probably if I go out of my country, my hometown, then it's a different world. Then I can do whatever I want. Because the thing is, mostly people are labeled. If you're intelligent, then you're labeled to be boring. You have to be boring, because you can't be intelligent and rocking it. I mean, they just don't work. You can't be rocking it, being, I don't know, a party girl, and at the same time sitting down with your nerdy glasses and proving mathematical theorem. You can't be an athlete while you are also a philosopher or a thinker or a musician. I mean, well, you can be, but these are what we have learned from outside, that you can't behave this and you can't behave like this when you go to this place. You can't wear this and that in a law firm. You can't smile. You can't laugh too much. I was told a few times in the bank, I mean, you're laughing a lot. I'm sorry. Tomorrow when I come, you'll see me crying. Maybe that makes you happier. Of course, I'm bringing energy to the people. And, you know, there are examples that depending on what industries you are, and I just mentioned now two of the most conservative ones, but it's not only belonging to those industries. There are many, many other ones. The time that you enter into those professional levels, and especially the time that you stand out by certain qualities or by certain talents or skills, that is the time that even the labels get bolder, the prejudice gets deeper, the voices behind you get louder, and that is a time that you really need to have something to nail it, or to nail who you are. For me, the shift came quite a while ago. All my life, I was living all of my sides, but unfortunately not all in one. That is why I'm in love with the concept of inclusion. The same that I love the diversity and the changes and different sides of everything, the same level I fell in love with the concept of bringing everything into one and not living all of my sides in different containers. I tell you, I swear it's been frustrating and exhausting. It's been exhausting for I don't know how many years. I don't tell you how many years because then you will know my age, but for such a long time, living all of those clusters separately. the funny, cool, and the fire and the party and the passionate one was living the life differently somewhere else, in a different outfit, in a different platform, on a different format. The intelligent one in the library was living a different life with a different outfit, with a different even circle of people. The professional one was living a different life during the day, going to work, doing this and that. And there was a time that I realized, God, I'm getting tired. This is exhausting, living a couple of lives. So they were just now 3 examples that I told you. There are also a couple of other sides: the fashionable one, the artist one, the musician one, the mathematician one, the real estate. I always had the feeling of I have so much to manage. And you know what? There was also one aspect of my life that probably it's coming also from the name, the winning side, the winning part, and being always the first and the best. And one part is the name, probably just to have it in a fun way. But the other part is also the way we were raised. We were always like pushed into competition, be always the first in the first row, you remember, and be the best always at school. So it has all worked. But there was a time in my life that I realized the price that I'm paying is so much higher. And the moment that I'm getting at the peak of that hill as a winner, as the first winner, not only just a winner, as the first one, when I reach that peak of the hill, I am so exhausted that when I just try to enjoy the view around me or my achievements, I could not really even enjoy. And that is called, historically, it's called Pyrrhic victory. It calls from the time before the Roman Empire, where this Pyrrhic Caesar was conquering nations by nations, but he was doing it really for whatever it takes. So on the way, he was losing half of his army, half of his resources, half of their belongings and everything. And then, but he was winning, but bruised and tired and with lack of resources at the end of the day. So historically, it's known Pyrrhic victory. And I told myself, stop the Pyrrhic victory. It's a losing game. You are the winner, but inside you're tired. So stop living all of those lives differently and being the best in each one of them. That is tiring. So just put everything together. And that needs, of course, a certain load of competency and confidence and charisma, and everything should come together, and maybe age as well. A certain level of maturity, the time that you also open up for help from others and support to learn and to educate yourself and acquire all of those skills to come to a certain personal development that you think, I am fine with being a lawyer and going to the law firm with my hairs open like I'm going on a dance floor. What is wrong with that? I mean, I was told a couple of times in the past, also in the law firms, would you please put your hairs together? I mean, these things like this, you know, or do not laugh so much during the meetings. I mean, if we hear a funny case, why we shouldn't laugh? There are sometimes also legal cases which are super funny. So these are the things that you don't do this here, you don't talk like that there, you don't wear this here. I mean, I tell you something, these are rules, and rules are made by human. And human is a creature which is not only subject to habit, but also subject to change, constant change and evolution. And some people, human, as a subject of change and evolution, cannot stick to something which is called to be absolute. So the rules which are made by human, which are themselves subject to change, how can these rules be absolute? No. So these needs people who don't settle, but who battle and rebel, you know?
I think people also find solace and comfort in what they can understand. So whatever it is that is new to them, it scares them because they don't realize, they don't know how to react to it, right? So if they see a beautiful, sexy woman entering the court, all of a sudden, I think they probably lose balance, right? Because they don't know, they weren't expecting to handle such a situation. So I think it's security, it's a comfort zone, it's fear of the unknown, right? So
Right.
and I think it takes a lot of courage and like you said, charisma and also confidence, but because you back it up with work and education. So you
with competence, exactly. Because I think the moment you know what you're talking about, then you can't shake because of those kind of things, you know? Because whatever comes at you, whatever biases, whatever prejudice comes at you, you know how to handle it, you know.
Handle
So
it.
the risk gets mitigated. And as Warren Buffett says, the best definition of risk is not knowing what you do. It's very simple. Not having enough knowledge and information about the current situation. That is called risk. And once you cannot handle it, the risk goes higher, and then the fear kicks in.
Right.
And the fear kicks in, then you start settling, then you start fitting in. And then that is where the biases and the prejudices, they succeed, or they prevail,
Yeah.
which is dangerous, which is happening every day. I mean, the corporate world, I tell you something. I have a very, this lady used to be my, let's say, muse 2-3 years ago, but I met her then at the time in the States personally. Her name is Francesca Gino. She is a Harvard professor and also a very well-known researcher in fields of leadership and rebellion. So I told myself, I said, this is the person that I want to meet, because she believed that the rebels are the best leaders. I mean, we're not talking about rebels in sense of anarchies or something like that. We're talking about rebels who are also acting out of innovation, intelligence, courage, charisma, confidence, all of those aspects. But and the moment that level of intelligence and confidence goes high, you can't go with the flow. So you have two options. You either bend and go with the flow, or you say, I do it my way, but then there's a price that you have to pay. She ran a research 2 years ago, and in this survey, there were like 2,000 people who were randomly picked in corporate life. And they were asked the same question with regards to compliance, conformity, fitting in, etc. And almost, I think, 80% of those 2,000, they all confirmed that they are being on daily basis, micromanaged, they are being controlled, they are required to conform and comply. This is devastating, this is dangerous. And only, I think, 10% confirmed that in their workplace, they are being encouraged toward innovative approaches, towards constructive nonconformity. That is her term. I love it, because nonconformity as such, a lot of people, they label it negative again, but she brought it up as constructive nonconformity. So to think differently, act differently, talk differently, but in a constructive way. And once your employers or those who are sitting above you, whom you're reporting to, they encourage this, the results were amazing, because it was proven that the results were in those certain corporate sectors, that those employees or those even managers or people who were just in the teams, they were encouraged and pushed towards more innovation, more loyalty, more commitment, and higher performance level with pleasure.
Wow.
This should be a dream of every corporate actually in the world, but only 10%.
But also because they felt trusted, right? So
Correct.
You feel like you belong and you feel trusted, it gives you that much more space to be doing even more, right? So
exactly.
So for the sake of time, because
you said one very nice sentence at the end, I would love to emphasize it again. You said they feel belong, but they feel like they are okay, they're allowed to act different while they still can belong. That is the gorgeous part. So that is bringing us to the concept of inclusion, so that you can be still included in the team amongst the peers. You don't be mobbed or being excluded because of thinking or acting differently, because the one above, or the employer or the manager, is pushing you toward the constructive form. And so that is actually the highest level of high performance.
You belong regardless of your non-conformism, right? And
correct. You feel comfortable while you're different.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like being excluded, because as you said also very beautifully, human beings scared of being left alone, or being missing something, or not belonging to the similars. But you feel like, okay, I am acting differently, but I can still belong to this corporate community or to this team.
So for the sake of time, because I could stay here and talk to you for hours on this topic, but unfortunately we have to get going. So can we maybe end with some tips, like tangible tips that our guests here could apply at work or even at home with friends right away, and then globally as well, So I don't know if there could be a legal term like techniques, or just social tips, whatever it might be.
Legal tips come as well. Yeah, definitely. But one very easy social thing is the next time you go somewhere, you try exactly to target and go to talk that very person who looks very scary to you, who really you don't want to approach. I mean, who would say, with that person, I wouldn't talk. Go exactly target and talk to that person, because it may scare the shit out of you, but it may teach the shit to you as well. Because you don't know. There is a 3 feet rule that one of my coaches always said. He said, you never know who the person who is sitting or standing 3 feet away from you can become while you start a conversation with. It can become your next business partner, your next employee, employer, a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, whatever, homemate, flatmate. You never know. There's a 3 feet rule. That person can turn into something in your life the moment you step in, the moment you just say, you just remove that fear of unknown, as you said. So just try something totally different and be okay with that. And the things that you have been always covering, because as I said, every day when people go to work or start daily life or in their business life, they cover or hide at least one of their aspects or criteria of their person or their character, whether it's their fun side, whether it's their serious side, whether it's their conservative side, it's their religious side, it's the the musician side. One thing is always being suppressed, at least. And again, when coming back home, the other parts are being suppressed, and then another person is coming. So that wearing and removing that mask every day prior to going to work and coming back home, this is so exhausting, I tell you. Remove it, remove it. If you want to laugh in a meeting, do it. Ladies sometimes, they always complain. That is one tip for only for the ladies. There are 2 tips actually. The one you said, the legal one, the negotiation part, I tell you now. One tip is, when you go into like a male-dominated meeting, I get addressed by these so many times. That's the topics is rather male. I mean, it's very masculine. Suddenly when 5 men are in a meeting and 1 lady, so suddenly they start with a very masculine joke, or maybe even sexual harassment for women or whatever, or they start talking about football or something. Start also with another joke. Start giving it back. If it's about like you feel like being harassed, do the same. Try it for once. It is not bad. Nothing will happen. Nobody will kill you, and you will not get a heart attack, and you will go through it. The first one, whatever you do for 5 times, you will become fearless. Do it 5 times. If you're, I mean, I used to run sometimes trainings or teaching sessions as I was working for the second major Swiss bank, and the audience were rather male. Most of them, 90% of them. And I was that, the Iranian, and what does this little woman has to tell us, etc. So the looks were always like this, very skeptical, especially those who were wearing those glasses. They were looking like this. Oh, okay, what does she have to talk about? But the moment they know, what you're talking about. That's what we just mentioned. Build that competence and nail it with confidence. Then the most skeptical people, regardless of gender, I mean, I'm not a fan of like, I don't know, feminismus, or I don't know, what is the other way around? Masculinismus. Do you have something like that as well? I don't know. So I'm not really the fan of like sticking to a certain gender and fighting the other gender. No, we are all one. I mean, women without men, something is missing. Men without women, something is missing again. So I am not for a concept that people should exclude each other or say, okay, if now the men are dominating a meeting, then we will create another women dominate. No, mix it up. As you know, I launched the first ladies group in this country, which is open to men, because I wanted men to come in to tell us women, what are those issues that you're having issues with, so that we work on ourselves, and vice versa. What are those things that we expect you to do or to change, so that we become more friends with each other? So that is one tip that I would say, just do something, go get out there and do something that you were afraid of, that you thought you may get excluded from the meeting, you may get fired. Nothing will happen, even if you get fired. It's a job, it's not your arm, it's not your food, nothing. I mean, there's no security in the world anyway. One mini legal, I mean, not really legal, but it goes in the legal area for ladies, especially, who always think they are being neglected or overseen or overlooked in the professional world with regard to salary especially. There is one very important point. I was very much against these protests and issues that were happening. I think it was a year ago or something, against men by women. They were asking for more salary or so. I was just telling some of them, said, ladies, instead of going out there in the street, knocking at the other doors and asking actually the guys or the men to give you more salary, first, there's one way. Build up your own empire, build up your own business. Okay, not everybody's into that. Second one is, if you want to still apply for a job, or if you continue in your employee-employer relationship, for the next switch, negotiate your salary better. And the negotiation skill comes from knowing who you are and knowing your worth. Once you know your worth, you don't sell yourself for less, and you don't settle. But unfortunately, I thought it is something that is coming from our region, but now we are also in the, let's say, European part. I mean, so the better European part, I mean, Switzerland, highest life quality, and so on and so forth. But still, a lot of ladies are struggling with this. And then at the end, they're complaining why the guy got 20% more salary than me, because he didn't settle for less. He asked for it. Ask for it. Ask and you will be given. It's even written in some religious texts as well. So just negotiate those contracts, negotiate those terms. And if there are like issues like those, of course, I train some women exactly on those skills, so that how to nail their competence and confidence both together with courage. The courage is missing, unfortunately, which is something that we can't sometimes blame, because we women by nature, we are the givers, we are the nurturers. Which is actually gorgeous. It's beautiful. We're creatures of giving and loving, but the moment we have to allow ourselves to expect as well. It is okay. It is fully fine. Let's switch to questions. Otherwise, you know, I'm a lawyer and I'm a woman. I can speak until next week. I have no problem with that.
We just have, you know, we haven't taught to leaning in, you know, and I think to your point, whatever you choose to do, you have to be also willing to take the consequences.
Correct.
So if
Correct.
you're about, you know, so that you have to be strong in order to be able to take that, right? So
yeah, and that strength is not just born. It's something. It's a skill that we must learn.
Exactly. It's all learned behavior. Absolutely.
Like a new alphabet. It's like new language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So far, I only see, if anyone has questions, I only see from Nick. A friend of mine is attempting to build awareness for Iranian women that are victims of acid attacks. How big a problem is this?
This is a big problem, actually, and I think we're all concerned and aware of that. So if I may ask, where this friend want to build this campaign for awareness or something, because if depending on where this is going to be launched, the effect and the impact can be totally different. If it's being built by a local woman in the country itself, challenges are higher. Chances are that the success is less, because, you know, you can be imprisoned for whatever that you talk, which is not similar, or which is different and diverse. So that is already you're already a criminal when you're different. That is actually the thing, that the challenge that we all had there. But if it's going to be in a different country, in a different territory, under different support from, like, running a right campaign and including professional support into that, so that it's not just like rebellion for the sake of nothing, but being backed by proper professional advices, by a right professional support and foundation. It must be something that is built professionally, with a plan, with the right preparation, with the right strategies, with like having lawyers on board, having philosophers on board, having people, sociology or psychology experts on board, so that there is a team of competent, confident people who are representing something like that, so that they can also make it like a campaign and represent it to the world to raise awareness. Because if people who are building such things are not credible, they will not also be taken serious, and the whole cause will just unfortunately vanish in a short amount of time.
Well, thank you, Nick, for your question. Any other question? I don't see.
If
Okay.
there are not questions, let's talk.
I think
Let's continue.
we have a couple of minutes. I think everyone is getting ready for their weekend, I guess, an
Oh
early.
yeah. No, no,
Well,
it's early. Come
Thursday,
on.
that's, Friday. But anyways, I first, thank you again for all the members of A Small World who came and used this time to join us, and hopefully we were able to shed some little light or actually inspire you or make you smile or enlighten you, whatever that might be. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Katerina, for giving us this opportunity to share our time with you. And Awin, thank you so much for this time together. It was, as always, super fun, very interesting, very inspiring, and yeah, I mean, yes, thank you. And for everyone who wants to maybe get a hold of either of us, I think all of our coordinates are included in the event invitation. So feel free to reach out to us with any question, any topic, or anything that you want to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And anything that you would like to close this hour with?
Yes, there's one maybe last message that I have from my own life. I mean, get away with no's, get away with differences and biases, and create a package of yeses for yourself. I mean, the time that I started my legal career here in Switzerland, although I studied law here, although I had my apprenticeships and let's say foundation career here, but I had a problem to really enter into the legal market. It was a big problem. So they were not letting me in. And one of those biases were like, oh, you're not from here, so probably you're not fluent in German, in the local language, although I studied here in German. So I had to be really on a pretty acceptable level to be admitted into law school in German and write all exams in writing or also orally. But there were those biases already. And there were like certain law firms, I knew that they were not even looking at my application because of seeing a name which they are not familiar with, which is not similar to what they have heard before. There were calls or sometimes that I was calling them and I say, would you please tell me the reason? And they were first writing me an email and addressing me with Mr. Tavakoli. They not even looked at my picture. Just, it was enough for them to see the name and then it was out in the garbage, the whole application. And I had like, I think Jack Ma had 132 rejections for his job. So I hit him even. I had like 162. So I have all of those under my belt. It took me like 3 years, but that all pushed me towards something on my own, because during those times, I realized what were all of those gaps, biases, issues that they were also bothering me, or they were somehow pushing me away. And I told myself, I'm going to build something which is going to be totally different than this. And it brought me like to becoming a mini global brand for myself, and not even doing marketing and not even running a website, not knowing what to do with all of the clients who were reaching out to me. The moment you try to do something different, to be yourself, to transfer or transmit what you have your own way, to spread your message and to add value to people the way you love it, not because of making money or something, that will sit and that will sink. And those people, those right people, will get attracted to you and find you. So don't be afraid of like losing a job or a partner or an opportunity or something. Those things that you're losing, they're neither your partners nor your opportunities nor your jobs. Yours is somewhere beyond, on the other side of the fear.
Thank you. That's so true. As long as your why is strong enough, when you speak from the heart and you go there, you conquer it all. Thank you so much. Yeah, don't take
Thank you too. Thank you also, and Ariane. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everybody who bared with us. Unfortunately, I do not see the chat comments, but to every one of you and single one of the participants, big thank you for your patience as well, and hope we could give you some values. You know where to find us, as Ariane mentioned, and it was my utmost pleasure to spend this 1 hour on a Thursday evening with you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrea from Berlin, and Corina. Thank you so much. Again, hope to hear from all of you very soon. And if we don't, have a lovely, lovely summer. Please be safe, be healthy, and just keep on laughing and dancing. And that's my last words. And thank you, everyone. Everyone's thank you, thank you, thank you. So we get a lot of nice comments here. And
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so have an amazing evening and see you soon.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.